Are you a boss struggling, feeling overwhelmed with your increasing amount of workload? Hi, I'm Dr. Heather Williamson with Transformation Group, and we're a leadership consulting firm that believes every leader should be developed to their full potential. We listen to what the real challenges are causing you to feel burned out and customizing a coaching plan that guarantees success. If you're wanting to become a less stressed leader, call us at 804-598-9175 or check out our website at transformationgroupllc.com.
Good morning. You are listening to Dr. Heather Williamson, the Leadership Doc, host of Talking Leadership. And I am really excited today because I have Dr. Sarah Scarbrough in the house. So hopefully you've got your cup of coffee, you are sitting in a chair or putting on your makeup or doing whatever you're doing at 5:30 in the morning and sit here and listen to what we have got to share with you today. So Dr. Sarah Scarbrough, so she actually is the director and founder at Real Life, which actually was founded in 2016.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is basically, I love your motto, a new day, a new life, and a new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't mind, share a little bit about what Real Life is.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Good morning to you as well. We are a program that does recovery housing for men and women who are in need, men and women who are looking for a new day, a new opportunity, second chances.
Mm-hmm.
We have 12 recovery houses in the city of Richmond, serve folks from all over Virginia, but our houses are in the city.
And so what got you interested? Because I know when I was kind of looking at your background, law enforcement has kind of been your area that you've kind of stayed in. And I think you have seen some things having worked in the law enforcement field. And so share a little bit why you're so passionate about the mission that you have with Real Life.
Well, criminal justice runs through my blood, as you referenced, growing up in a law enforcement household. And so, really wanted to go into this arena, but wasn't honestly quite sure what I wanted to do. But I had an opportunity to conduct research for my PhD at the Richmond jail, looking at the effectiveness of a program there aimed at rehabilitation and substance use. And during that 5-year research period, I had an opportunity to do something that not many people did. I worked with thousands of inmates and really began to learn their stories, understand them, understand why they were doing what they were doing, not justifying, but understanding, and realize as a society, we've got a huge problem that's really not being addressed holistically and comprehensively. And so after I graduated, I just kept on going back to jail, and finally the sheriff hired me.
On this side of the jail and not the inside of the jail.
Yes, I kept on going inside, but I could leave when I wanted. But Sheriff Woody, the sheriff of the city at the time, hired me full-time to be his program director. And at that time was really able to move programming forward and then also start programming in the community to kind of fill some gaps of what was missing for folks upon release. And so fast forward to now, here we are in 2022, doing this in the community full time, although we do go back into jails and prisons at times to work on things.
So you don't know this, but when I was in grad school getting my PhD, I took a program evaluation class. And actually that led to an opportunity. I did a short stint until I got hired back by VCU. But I worked for the Department of Correctional Education, evaluating a life skills program in the prison system. So that was really interesting. I visited a lot of prisons myself, and yeah, it was on this side going in, and which I like that side much better.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I don't think I could go without makeup and that sort of thing for that long.
So with your nonprofit that you've been running for a while, what is, I know one of the challenges I've seen, because I've sat on boards of nonprofits, is really recruiting great people who are willing to volunteer their services. How, because you've been around for a little while, how have you been so successful at that?
I think one of the biggest pieces to that is knowing what your mission is and sticking to it.
Yeah.
I was introduced early on to the term mission drift. drift.
Mhm.
And I think that so many organizations do that. And so when people see that, they're just not sure what your organization does. And so they don't see how they could fit in. They don't picture how they could fit in. They
Right.
don't feel a true investment that they can make because, again, you're kind of wishy-washy and everywhere. So we've really been strong with real life in that mission drift and really making sure that we know our mission, we know who we serve, we know what we do, we know how we do it. And then
Mhm.
we also know places where we can put people in. And then we're also very realistic with it. We have more volunteers sometimes than we have places for. And
That is really
um,
that's a tough problem to have.
it is. Thank you. But being honest with people so
Yeah.
that they don't feel taken advantage of and that they
Mhm.
know that their time is going to be an investment if they make it.
Mhm. And I think when you actually communicate what that mission is
Mhm.
and you do it consistently, then you're going to get the buy-in from the people because they know what their roles are going to be. And then, like you said, people come in with all different backgrounds.
Right.
You've got some people who have a marketing background who'd be great on the board or on the team, providing
Mhm.
those marketing efforts and helping to make that successful. So it's so important when you are, recruiting for your board, recruiting
Mhm.
for your volunteers, getting them a taste of what it is that you do,
Right.
to really make sure that they are, using their strengths as well.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times people look at volunteering and say, let's go to a soup kitchen or let's
Mhm.
organize backpacks for kids. And,
Yeah.
they see the things on the outside, but they're not, organizations don't look at some of the things behind the camera, so to
Mhm.
speak, such as,
Mhm.
maybe there's a really introverted person who is a great videographer who can do a video for
Yeah.
you free of charge, or photography, or they're a
Or
great
at a
writer.
significant discount.
Exactly, absolutely. Or proofread your annual report or help write
Yeah.
grant. There's so many things. And I think a lot of organizations miss the mark to really hone in on some of those
Mhm.
behind the scenes type
Have
of
an attorney
activities.
on the board as well.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
CPA.
Yeah, CPA. Yeah, all that.
Yes.
Because people want to give back to the community in general, and
They
they're
do.
just trying to figure out where their purpose is, and then
Mhm.
find a nonprofit that will align with that.
Absolutely.
So, criminal justice and law enforcement, that
Mhm.
is pretty much a male-dominated area.
It is.
Yeah, that field is male-dominated. So how, what are the challenges that you've seen coming into that male-dominated field as a woman, and then having the success that you've had?
Mhm. Well, I think especially going into the jail as a civilian, as a
Mhm.
female civilian, doing programming, which a lot of people in uniform don't believe in.
Mhm.
It was tough. And so I used kind of some of the naysayers as a motivation to say, watch me,
There you
watch our
go.
program, watch what we can do, watch our
Mhm.
staff. And for me, in my head, that was kind of the oomph I needed.
Mhm.
But I think just consistency and staying with it and showing I'm as tough as you. I'm with you. We can partner and make this happen.
Mhm.
But then also hearing them. Usually there is reasons that people are cautious or reasons that people are skeptical. Most often it's the fear of the unknown.
Mhm.
But if you're willing to open up in that conversation, open up in that dialogue, people are usually willing to, again, dialogue with you. And
Mhm.
that's, I think, how partnerships and relationships are formed and how some of those bridges can be mended so that you can kind of walk in harmony with somebody.
So when you go in and you talk with, let's say, and I'm just drawing a blank on the police, like the sheriff for Chesapeake County. I think you do stuff with him.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Carl Leonard.
Leonard, yeah, Sheriff
Greatest.
Leonard. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So I know one of our friends that we have in connection is Jill Chickowitz
Yes.
and her nonprofit, To End the
Mhm.
Stigma, which you actually currently sit on the board for her.
Yes.
Interesting,
Such an
but
honor.
both of them are aligned in their missions, very
Absolutely.
similar.
Mhm.
Obviously different purpose, but so when you go talk to men, when
Mhm.
as sheriffs and in that law enforcement role, what are some of the maybe the preconceptions that they might have that you have to overcome?
Mhm. Possibly she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's
Mhm.
not been doing this long
Oh
enough.
yeah,
She's not tough enough.
yeah.
They're gonna walk all over her. I think that
Going to
those
be
are
intimidated if you go into the jail or the
Absolutely.
prison.
They won't take her
Yeah,
seriously,
yeah.
that type of thing. And honestly, the first time that I walked into the jail to do my research, I think that there was some of that among the inmates that were in there. And so
Mhm.
it took time to prove that I had no ulterior motives, that I was there to help, that no, you can't walk all over me and talk to me any type of way you want. You know, you really
Mhm.
have to establish yourself in all of those arenas to overcome some of those stigma attachments.
Yeah, seriously. So because you've been around, meaning, and you still have people that are wanting to volunteer their
Mhm.
time and their effort, how do you retain, you've been great in this leadership role. How have you been able to retain those that are wanting to help you?
I think one of the biggest things is appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if people feel appreciated, they want to come back.
Yeah.
You know, people that want to volunteer, they're doing it for some type of an emotional reason,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be because they lost somebody, you know, to an overdose, so they want to give back to an organization that serves
Yeah.
that, or if they, you know, have been very blessed with the amount of money they've made, and so that they want to give, you know, there's always some type of emotional reason. And so if you can kind of tap into that emotion, show appreciation, get to know them, get to know the why that they want
Yeah.
to. How many organizations are out there that you could volunteer for? Why did they choose me? Why did they choose mine?
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's where that retention is. On the contrary, I think the opposite happens when people don't feel appreciated. They feel like their work is not worth it, that they feel
Right.
like that, well, I'm just sitting here doing nothing. That's, you know, when they'll walk out the door and find something that is what I would say more meaningful to them.
Mm-hmm. You know, I recently read a poll from Gallup,
Okay.
and they did a survey, and majority of the people, in order to increase their engagement, you just have to recognize them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're recognized, then they're going to be, have higher levels of engagement within the organization. Same thing for nonprofits. I mean, it's the same behaviors that you have to really focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And just acknowledging people and the time and the effort that they're putting into. Because sometimes, I mean, some of these board meetings are at night, so you're taken away from their family time, dinner time, weekends.
Absolutely.
So yeah, recognition and acknowledgement and appreciation are all really important. So also, when it comes to engaging your team, what do you do besides acknowledging them, do you think, that you found really effective?
Getting their buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
Not running an organization in a dictatorship manner.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm the leader, I'm the director, I have that authority, but that's not the way that I like to operate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you do give your staff an opportunity to talk about what's coming up, talk about forming this new program,
Mm-hmm.
talk about, you know, the new things to come, or what are we going to do, or how are we going to do it, or, you know, giving them that ownership. They have that ownership, which means that their investment is more, and they too feel appreciated. They too feel heard. They feel, you know, a part of the bigger cause, instead of just, I'm coming to work to pay my bills.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you've got some staff on your team.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, creating that nonprofit and going through all the governmental, hoops that you have to jump through,
Mm-hmm.
what is that process for anybody out there listening that is thinking about doing the same thing?
So I think one of the biggest things, and one of the reasons that we were successful, is because we had a great team behind us.
Mm-hmm.
We had what I would call kind of a focus group team that really sat down and went through some really hard questions. And I thought that we had identified a problem, but we went through all of the questions to really confirm that there was a problem, and here's how we're going to solve it, and here's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, we went through the whole process, and it was not fun. It was hard. It was long hours. It was after a full-time job. It was time away from my family and my children. It was answering really tough questions that sometimes I just didn't want to feel like answering, but ultimately that gave us a great foundation to start. And it gave us, a really great foundation as we are going out, selling our story, selling our mission,
Mm-hmm.
and getting buy-in from the community. And so having that team behind you that believes in you, that brings in the skill set, various skill sets,
Mm-hmm.
And asks the hard questions, I think is really critical, in really identifying what's the need. It's not just, oh, we need a recovery house. It's much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And what is your model, and how are you going to do it? And why another one, and how is it different than the other? All of those things are so important. I think that what a lot of people think is, boom, I need a paycheck on day one. And that would be nice, but that's just not the reality. That sweat equity is what is so critically important, that has to be put in really understanding that a lot of that's going to go in and a lot of long hours before you're going to see any fruits of your labor.
I mean, it could be years, a few years before you actually get a paycheck. I mean, you've got to have enough money built up in the bank account to cover whatever programs that you have, established and are running to fund those before you can really start funding a staff.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
So I was thinking about what you were saying when it comes to really digging deep and finding out what that issue is. It's kind of, gets back to problem solving.
Right.
And also, I think when you are passionate about your nonprofit, it's so important, which you've done really successfully, is to be open-minded to what other people's bringing in their experiences and their backgrounds and things that they would like to see happen based upon that. So how do you make sure as a leader in your organization that you do keep that open mind and are allowing them to voice their opinions?
It's tough, and it's kind of letting go of the reins, especially when you're the founder and this is kind of the baby. It is hard, and it's something that I really, and even with hiring staff, I've had to say, okay, I'm going to let this go and let this new hire do this. I'm going to let this go, and those sorts of things. And when you have these ideas coming from the board, just really understanding they're here to help grow, to help build, to help challenge, which ultimately, hopefully, will make you and the organization better and stronger. I think one of the biggest things, again, is going back to that mission drift, because a lot of times folks will bring ideas. Something we get all the time is, well, why don't you help kids? There's this great idea. Why don't we bring this? That's not what we do. We work with adults. The kids are important, but somebody else does that. We are focused on the adults. And so I think, keeping that vision and the blinders on as far as your mission, but also incorporating other people's ideas and hearing what they say and, really exploring them, because it could be the next best thing that your organization is going to embark in.
So your focus, the people that you really work with, are those that have been incarcerated, both men and women. You have a house. So tell about the house, share a little bit about that.
So we've got 12 houses, as I mentioned earlier, in this city. They're regular houses like you or I would live in. And it's really to get folks integrated. Real stands for recovery from everyday addictive lifestyles. When folks come in, I tell them, the easiest part about our job is to get you to stop using drugs. The hardest part is to get you to remain stopped using drugs. That is hard to keep you off of those drugs or alcohol, whatever your addiction is. It's all of these other lifestyles and really learning how to live. And so we take a trauma-informed behavior modification approach to address all of those facets, all of those lifestyles that have gone hand in hand with that substance use of, like I said, the drugs or the alcohol. So of course, addressing the addiction, but the lifestyles too, so that somebody then can do something different, be the person that they were born to be and destined to be. And so the kind of crux of that is in those houses, and really empowering them of living in a nice place, in a nicer neighborhood, with things that don't look like they're from a frat house. All of that. Just
you actually have a sofa that hasn't been on the front porch of somebody's frat houses.
Exactly. Oh, yes. No cockroaches or anything.
So you also work with the homeless.
Yes.
And also those who have had substance abuse, like you said. Having, and I hate to get political, but there's lots of drugs coming across the border these days, within the last 2 years. So have you seen more of a demand in your services as a result of this, or what are you seeing?
No question. Between that and COVID, it is off the charts right now. The number of people that are seeking services, the number of people that are suffering from addiction, the number of people that are dying. Heard from the Office of Drug Control Policy out of the White House this morning, 294 people a day are dying in our country from an overdose. That is more than almost any other thing that is
Mhm.
killing people, 294 a day. To put it in perspective for us right here, before COVID, so March of 2020, we had 3 houses. Here we are, 2
At
years
12.
later, we have 12. And supply and demand still don't meet. We are usually on a waiting list, as are the other organizations in the area and in Virginia that have recovery housing. It's just the need has skyrocketed. People are hurting. The amount of drugs that are out there are just skyrocketed. Was talking to a friend the other day. Her 8th grader is now playing varsity or JV football at a high school,
Mhm.
and they're smoking pot in the bathroom, and in the locker rooms. And
Crazy, crazy, crazy.
it's a lot, and it's laced with everything, which is
Yeah.
what's killing people. It's not just a simple marijuana anymore. So it's
No.
it's everywhere. It's devastating.
And I'm probably a little older than you, but marijuana is not the same as it was back,
Mm-mm.
20 years ago.
Absolutely.
It's totally different. And then nowadays you don't, like you said, it's laced with something, you don't know what's in it. So
Mhm.
it's really, just don't do it.
Right.
People, just don't do it.
Absolutely.
So how do people get in touch with you?
So we are super active on social media under Real Life. Look us up. Our website, reallifeprogram.org.
Mhm.
Our phone number is on there as well, so can look us up. If an individual or a loved one is struggling, we can see what we can do to possibly help.
Mhm.
If we cannot help, we have a great relationship and partnerships with organizations in Virginia, and we are certainly always happy to refer folks to other places if maybe we don't have a bed or if we may not be the
Mhm.
most appropriate fit.
Mhm. So as a leader in your organization, what would you say that you have done has been giving you the most significant outcome?
Um, I think as a director, my initial focus on developing our program was instrumental.
Mhm.
We had a great set of donors from the beginning, and that really enabled me to focus my time. Having kind of that seed startup funding
Mhm.
really enabled me to focus on that mission development that I keep talking about, on what are our programs, how are we delivering them, how can
Mhm.
they be top notch. And so, a lot of directors focus 95% of their time on raise money, which is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
But then what happens to the programs that you're delivering
Right.
if you can? And so I was able to focus 60% of my time in year 1 in that program development and wrote our curriculum and all of that. And then through that and showing our success, was able to continue raising the money in order to operate
Mhm.
the program. And then, as I referenced, continue to grow. So really having that core set of people, as I referenced, having the people that are willing to put their money where their mouth is, so that your program can be established right out of the gate in a very, very strong and solid manner.
So you referenced writing your own programs to make
Mhm.
sure that you've met the needs of the people that you serve. How do you go about doing that? To make sure that you're actually creating a program that is going to give you positive benefits.
Right. Well, as a PhD, as you know, it's a research degree.
It is,
So we just
it is a research degree.
everything,
Definitely, I
like it or
know.
not.
I know.
So that is key, really looking
It's
at
all about
evidence-based.
behaviors.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Is
Mhm.
this evidence-based? What is backed in research? Who
Mhm.
can you talk to that's done it? What other states are implementing it? And then talking to the people you're going to serve. So the number of groups and meetings that we had with folks that could live in our recovery house that were battling addiction
Mhm.
was huge, because we wanted to know from them, is this beneficial? What do you
Right.
think? And then come back and take their feedback and incorporate and institute it, was huge. But I'm also not a fan of reinventing something that is out there.
Yeah.
And so in writing our curriculum, in writing our program, it was because there had been huge holes and gaps that were identified, which is a whole story for another day. But with that, we were able to fill the gaps, with the program and curriculum that was written.
Mhm. You bring up a really good point, and that is, do not reinvent the wheel.
Mhm.
There are, like you said, lots of programs out there, and I'm just thinking of even businesses that are, creating curriculum within, or training curriculums within their organizations, going out and doing the research to find out what actually has statistical results, what works and what doesn't. I mean, I use assessments in my practice, and there are assessments out there that are not valid and not reliable.
Absolutely.
And so I think when you are creating your programs out there, it's making sure that you are, keeping track of the data. So, which is really important.
No question.
And making sure that what you are implementing and having these people go through and the behaviors that you're trying to acknowledge and achieve, it's actually happening. And then sometimes it doesn't, and then you got to go back and look, okay, what's the obstacle that is, preventing these people from not achieving what they want to achieve.
Right. We can always do better.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of fear in leaders. Well, if it comes out that this was not the best, no, it's fine. It's okay. We did not do well at this last year. This year, here's how we're going to correct it. And hopefully we're going to have different results. And I think, we all have people we have to answer to. Our board, our shareholders, our donors, our whomever, they appreciate that honesty. And they appreciate, I think, the strive to do better and overcome those obstacles and hurdles. And sometimes, if you're a nonprofit like us, they'll say, glad you noticed that. Here's some funding to help you do it, type of thing. And so, recognizing those flaws and weaknesses is a strength, I think, in when you're looking at leadership.
Absolutely. And if you're a donor, hey, since you noticed, a little flaw in our process, maybe you might want to come on board and volunteer in some capacity.
Yes.
And, help us to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Absolutely. You can't miss those opportunities.
Exactly. So in closing, if you could share one piece of advice, what would you share for those listening today?
Oh, that is tough.
I know.
I will be so simple. Treat people how you want to be treated. I think today in this society, we are so fast to open our mouth and yell. We are so fast to criticize other people and just cut them down. But none of us want that on our own. Constructive criticism is good.
Yes.
But to treat your staff the way that you want to be treated, to talk to them the way you want to be treated, to appreciate them the way you want to be appreciated will go a long way. You're going to have retention, you're going to have happy people, you're going to have appreciated people, and you're going to have loyal people. And there's not enough loyal people out there. And so if you are able to create a culture that really equips people and makes them loyal, you're going to be successful.
Kind of like that Gallup poll that I was talking about with engagement, that went through all the generations, not just Gen Z, it went through all. So I thought that was really important. And so in closing, one more thing, how do they get in touch with you if they want to learn more about Real Life and also volunteer or make a donation?
Absolutely. So Instagram, Facebook, Real Life, that's where we are. Website, reallifeprogram.org. And all of our information is on there, email, all of that. So Real Life on the internet, Facebook, Instagram, love to hear from people.
Awesome. So you've been listening to Dr. Heather Williamson, your leadership doc on Talking Leadership. You can find me on my website, which is www.transformationgroup.llc.com, and learn more about myself and the services, the leadership executive coaching that I do. And also you can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Heather Williamson. So with that, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for listening. And I will be talking to you again next Monday with another amazing guest. Bye.